Is it possible to make blue switches sound good? Let's find out in this video. So I'll be walking you through the process of lubing my Corsair K70 keyboard, which has Cherry MX blue switches. And this process you can use for any switches basically. It's a very easy method of lubing the switches. You don't have to unsolder the switch or anything like that. And it's very fast as well. So you want to start off by taking all the keycaps off your keyboard as expected. And you want to start off by getting some Krytox 205G0 or dielectric grease, or in my case, I'm using a suspension grease for bikes, and it's a very similar consistency to dielectric grease or Krytox 205G0. And you want to put a little bit of that lubricant on your brush and then basically push down the stem of the switch, causing basically a little bit of a gap there where you can put some grease on both the left and right side of the switch. And as you're doing this, you put a little bit in there, then you press the switch up and down to hear if it makes a difference in sound. And especially with the blue switches, it's very easy to tell. And once you hear that the click of the blue switch is gone, then you're basically good to go and you can move on to the next switch. So it's a very easy process. Now onto the stabilizers. This is where you'll have to take a bit more care and you won't really get that much of a perfect result. But some of you might be lucky enough to have stabilizers that are pretty easy to work with. They're all kind of the same design, just some of them end up sounding better than others. So what you want to do with the stabilizers is you want to use some pliers, preferably needle nose pliers that can pick up the stem of the stabilizer and lift it up, so then you can actually put some lube where the metal wire goes and sort of intersects with the housing, as well as on the sides of the stem and just basically everywhere, and pump lube in there where the hole is, where the wire goes up and down inside the stabilizer. You want to have as much lube as you can in there, which will allow the stabilizer to have a much quieter sound, so it won't be rattling up and down inside the stabilizer. That's basically what you're doing. And this process will probably take quite a while before you perfect it. For me, I sort of put some in, stuff as much as I can in. I play around with the pliers and sort of wiggle it in, try and get as much in as possible. Then I'll put the keycap back on, have a listen to what it sounds like if you still hear more rattle. But you'll never be able to get a perfect result with this method because you can't actually, of course, take off the stabilizer unless you desolder all the switches, which takes heaps of time. So once you lube up the whole keyboard, all the stabilizers, this is how it's going to sound. And on my Corsair K70, I basically only lubed the letter keys, and I show the difference in sound between the keys that aren't lubed and the keys that are lubed, and it's a very noticeable difference on these blue switches. And I will also, after that, play a clip of my lubed Ajaz STK61, which has red switches. Now these are very cheap red switches, and I did make my previous video about modding this keyboard, but yeah, I'll be just leaving it in there for a bit of comparison for you. So is it worth picking up a cheap keyboard like from Kmart, or let's say you have a keyboard that's lying around with blue switches and you want to lube it? Is it worth doing this? I'd say absolutely. If you already have a keyboard that has blue switches, or you're thinking of getting, let's say, a cheap Kmart keyboard which costs like 20 bucks or 40 bucks, then yeah, it actually turns out to be pretty nice in the end. It's not going to be perfect because the blue switches, how they work, they have like a section in there that's separated from the other section of the stem, which causes that clicky sound. And this means even when they're lubed, they still have a slight rattle in them, as you probably heard in the sound test. So if you are looking to purchase a new keyboard, I would look into something like an Ajaz STK61, or if you're after a full-size keyboard, you can look at a cheap full-size keyboard that has either brown switches if you want the tactile bump, or red switches, or if you have a little bit of extra money, you could get something that's hot swappable to get the switch you actually really want. But I'm definitely pretty happy with how the blue switches turned out when they're lubed. They have that touch of rattle, and my stabilizers definitely weren't perfect. I only lubed the shift key just to give you a bit of comparison there, but I'd say it definitely makes a pretty big difference. Also, I'd like to note that with the Corsair K70 keyboard, I got this one from the side of the road, so it's missing the stabilizers on the spacebar. That's why it has no rattle, but it means it's not really stable and it's bad to type on. So hopefully this video did help you out, and if it did, drop a like on the video, and remember to subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. If it didn't, drop a dislike on the video, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.